Wait, I won, but I thought I was supposed to avoid the glowing orbs. This is a mating tournament. The iridescent crowd of Prilorians roared their approval, chanting something that sounded suspiciously like Richard, Richard. All Richard Taylor knew for sure was that tripping over that conveniently placed. Was that a gravitational anomaly generator? Had just landed him in the middle of something far more complicated than his research grant. The arena swam before his eyes, a kaleidoscope of shimmering scales, bioluminescent tattoos, and gravity-defying architecture. Towering structures of polished obsidian curved impossibly overhead, pulsating with an inner light that cast the entire space in an ethereal glow. The air hummed with a low, resonant frequency that vibrated in his teeth, carrying the scent of ozone and something akin to cinnamon. Just moments ago, he'd been Richard Taylor, astrophysicist, attendee of the International Xenoscience Conference, an enthusiastic consumer of lukewarm alien buffet snacks. Now, he was apparently Richard, champion of something. A high-ranking official, resplendent in iridescent robes that seemed to shift color with every movement, approached him with a stiff bow. "Greetings, Richard," the official said, his voice a guttural rumble translated into halting English by a small device affixed to his collar. "The trials are complete. By Prilorian law, you are now betrothed to the royal triad, Tara, Lyra, and Sira, the esteemed daughters of the Queen." Richard blinked. "Betrothed, as in, married to 3 people. Look, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but I really need to get back to my research. I'm tracking a stellar nursery in the Andromeda Galaxy, and the data window is closing fast." He adjusted his glasses, which had somehow remained miraculously intact through his accidental victory. "Besides, I'm pretty sure I just violated several international treaties regarding interference in alien mating rituals." The official, seemingly unfazed by Richard's protestations, gestured towards a waiting platform. "Custom dictates that the victor be escorted to the royal palace." "All will be explained." Richard sighed. Explanations, he suspected, were going to be in short supply. He was led away, the chanting of Richard echoing in his ears, a rhythmic reminder of his utterly baffling predicament. His new quarters were lavish. To say they were a step up from the cramped conference lodging he'd been assigned would be a gross understatement. The walls were constructed of some sort of polished, opalescent material that seemed to absorb and reflect the ambient light. Gravity-adjusting couches floated effortlessly above the floor, and intricate tapestries depicting scenes of Prilorian history adorned the walls. As he cautiously explored, prodding a floating fruit with a tentative finger, Richard couldn't help but feel a surge of scientific curiosity. The technology on display was unlike anything he'd ever seen, a seamless blend of organic and inorganic elements. He tentatively activated a wall panel, and a holographic display shimmered into existence, filled with complex symbols and diagrams. "Okay," he muttered to himself, "time to do some research." He began to input search terms, using the universal translator to access Prilorian databases. He learned about the royal mating tournament, a centuries-old tradition designed to find a consort capable of balancing the diverse skills and personalities of the 3 royal sisters, essential for maintaining royal stability. He also discovered that Prilorian marriage customs were significantly more complex than anything he'd encountered on Earth. A chime echoed through the suite, and the holographic display flickered, replaced by a live feed of a Prilorian guard standing at the entrance. "Richard," the guard announced, "Princess Tara requests an audience." The doors slid open with a soft hiss, and Tara, the eldest sister and heir to the throne, entered the room. She was tall and regal, with silver scales that shimmered like polished steel and piercing blue eyes that seemed to assess him with clinical precision. "Richard," she said, her voice cool and measured, "welcome to the royal palace. Your victory was certainly unexpected." Before Richard could formulate a response, another chime sounded and the doors opened again, revealing Lyra, the middle sister. Lyra was a stark contrast to Tara, with softer features, emerald green scales, and a warm, empathetic smile. She carried a datapad filled with sketches, and her eyes sparkled with artistic curiosity. "Forgive my intrusion, sister," she said to Tara, her voice melodic and gentle. "I simply wish to welcome Richard and offer him my assistance in understanding our culture." A subtle tension hung in the air as the two sisters exchanged a brief, unreadable glance. Richard cleared his throat. "Hi, it's great to meet you both. Look, about this whole betrothed thing." Meanwhile, unseen in the shadows of the palace, Lord Iconian watched the events unfold on a hidden monitor, his reptilian eyes narrowed in predatory anticipation. "The human has arrived," he hissed to his lieutenant. "And with him, the seeds of chaos. The triad will fall and Prylos will be mine." Back in Richard's quarters, the tension between the sisters was palpable. Richard was beginning to realize that this tournament was about more than just physical prowess. It was about finding someone who could navigate the complicated political landscape of the royal family. He also realized that the gravity-adjusting couch was surprisingly comfortable. As he was pondering his predicament, a notification popped up on his personal datapad. It was a coded message from his research team back on Earth. Location confirmed. Rescue op commencing in 7 solar cycles. Prepare for extraction. Richard stared at the message, his legs shaking. He had a choice to make: return to his comfortable life of research, or embrace this bizarre new reality and fulfill his unexpected role as consort to the royal triad. And what about the rumors that the youngest sister, Sira, was less than happy about the results or the rules in general? He had no idea what was in store for him or what he was going to do, but he was beginning to suspect that the stellar nurseries would have to wait. He looked around at the alien tech in his quarters, and a smile started to form. There were possibilities here he had never dreamed of. Richard blinked, the echoes of the crowd's chanting still ringing in his ears. He was ushered towards a table laden with things. He couldn't even begin to classify them as food. Tentacled pastries oozed a shimmering blue syrup, while pulsating, bioluminescent fruits sat nestled in beds of what looked suspiciously like petrified moss. This was breakfast. He tentatively reached for a small, spherical object that resembled a glazed eyeball. He hadn't even managed to spear it with the provided utensil, a 3-pronged fork that seemed designed for maximum awkwardness, when Tara cleared her throat. "Richard," she said softly, her violet eyes conveying a mixture of amusement and concern, "perhaps it would be best to observe first." He froze, the eyeball thing hovering precariously. All 3 sisters were watching him, their expressions a carefully crafted blend of regal composure and thinly veiled anticipation. Lyra subtly gestured towards a complex series of hand gestures one of the attending servants was making toward his plate. He hadn't even noticed. The server looked annoyed. He awkwardly set down the fork. The eyeball thing wobbled ominously. Later, after a breakfast that involved more miming than actual eating, Tara led him to a secluded balcony overlooking the city. The shimmering towers and gravity-defying architecture were breathtaking, but Richard was still reeling from his dining disaster. I'm sorry," he stammered. "I clearly have no idea what I'm doing." Tara sighed, the sound carrying a weight that belied her youthful appearance. "Prylorian courtly manners are intricate, Richard. What may seem trivial to you is often laden with political significance. The placement of your cutlery, the angle of your head, even the speed at which you chew all of it is scrutinized, analyzed, and interpreted. Maintaining these appearances is exhausting and, frankly, ridiculous." She gestured towards the bustling city below. "My family's position is not as secure as it seems. Iconian and his allies are constantly seeking ways to undermine us. Your unexpected victory has given them ammunition." A herald's voice boomed across the courtyard below. Lord Iconian requests an audience with the newly chosen consort, Richard Taylor. He demands a demonstration of his worth to the Prilorian people. Richard groaned. This just keeps getting better and better. Lyra, sensing his unease, sought him out later in her art studio. The space was filled with shimmering holographic sculptures, intricate patterns of light and color that seemed to float in the air. My art is inspired by Prilorian mythology, she explained, her voice soft and melodic. These forms represent the ancient gods and goddesses, the forces that shape our world. They are not merely decorations, Richard. They are embodiments of our spiritual beliefs. She gestured to a projection of a massive, many-armed being wreathed in cosmic fire. This is Xyler, the creator. From Xyler's pain, the universe was born. Richard, despite himself, was captivated. He'd always been drawn to the beauty of the cosmos, and Lyra's art offered a new way to experience it. As he examined a particularly intricate sculpture, he noticed a faint flicker in the holographic projector. "Is this supposed to be doing that?" he asked, pointing to the subtle distortion. Lyra frowned. "Doing what? I don't see anything." Richard, ever the scientist, moved closer, examining the projector's internal mechanisms. The quantum regulator is fluctuating. It looks like a faulty capacitor is causing interference with the energy field. He rummaged through a nearby toolbox, his fingers flying across the alien components. "Give me a few minutes. I think I can fix it." Lyra watched in astonishment as Richard, with a speed and precision that belied his earlier clumsiness, disassembled the projector and replaced the faulty component. Within minutes, the holographic sculptures were shimmering with renewed clarity. I don't understand," she said, her voice filled with awe. "How did you know how to do that?" Richard shrugged. "Astrophysics is all about understanding energy fields and manipulating quantum particles. This is basically the same thing, just shinier." Sierra, never one for subtlety, dragged Richard away from Lyra's studio, practically throwing him into the passenger seat of a sleek, modified airspeeder. "Forget the art and politics," she shouted over the roar of the engine as they shot through the city's canyons of chrome and glass. "I'll show you what Prilorian life is really about." The airspeeder accelerated, blurring the cityscape into streaks of vibrant color. Sierra expertly weaved through traffic, dodging flying vehicles and gravity-defying billboards. "This city is a cage, Richard," she yelled, her voice tight with frustration. "The rigid social hierarchy, the endless rules and regulations. It's suffocating. Iconian is a symptom of the problem. He represents everything that's wrong with this society." She suddenly swerved into a darkened alleyway, the airspeeder's engines cutting out. "If you want to prove your worth," she said, her eyes blazing with defiance, "forget Iconian stage demonstrations. Participate in the underground racing competition tonight. That's where the real Prilorians are." Back in his quarters, Richard received a secure message on his comm device. It was from his Earth team. "Dr. Taylor," the message read, "we have arrived in the Prilorian system. Please provide a rendezvous point for extraction." He frowned. Extraction. That evening, Tara found Richard pacing anxiously in the royal gardens. "Iconian's accusations have stirred unrest among the noble houses," she said, her voice imbued with worry. "Several prominent families are questioning my family's right to rule. If this continues, it could destabilize the entire Prilorian government." Lyra appeared, her face pale and drawn. "I had a vision, Richard," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I saw you leading the Prilorians to a new era of prosperity, but the path is fraught with danger." Sierra stormed into the garden, her face flushed with excitement. "So, are you in or out? The race starts in an hour." "Richard," Sierra said, her voice softer now, "if you leave with your team, you'll be abandoning us. You'll be proving Iconian right. You'll be confirming that humans are nothing more than opportunistic scavengers." She paused, her eyes searching his. "Choose, Richard, your team or my sisters." Richard typed furiously on his comm device, trying to access secure channels. He discovered the rendezvous point provided by his team was suspiciously close to a restricted military zone, raising red flags. Why would they want to meet him there? Then, he accessed a hidden file on the Prilorian network, a file he probably shouldn't have been able to find. It revealed that Iconian had been secretly funding his Earth team, providing them with advanced technology and resources. The plan was to use them to discredit the royal family, expose Prilorian secrets, and install Iconian as ruler. Richard's mind raced. He didn't know who to trust. His original mission was to study the Prilorian system, not to get embroiled in a political coup. But he couldn't ignore what he knew. He had to make a choice. Should he trust his team and risk exposing Prilorian secrets, or should he throw his lot in with the sisters and confront Iconian? Unable to securely communicate with his team and faced with Iconian's clear treachery, Richard made a difficult decision. He sent a coded message delaying the rendezvous, choosing to stay and investigate Iconian's scheme. He also warned the sisters that there may be traitors among them, people they trusted who were secretly working for Iconian. The game had changed. He was no longer just an accidental consort. He was a player. The weight of Richard's warning settled heavily on Tara. She straightened, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with a barely perceptible increase in intensity. "I appreciate your candor, Richard. Such directness is unusual but perhaps necessary." Immediately, she activated a secure channel on her wrist communicator. "Commander Ryla, initiate Protocol Theta-9, discreetly. I want a full audit of all senior staff, focusing on those with access to classified information. Begin with Advisor Phelan." A ripple of unease passed through the room, visible in the subtle shifts of the Prilorian's iridescent skin. Richard, observing the subtle dance of power, felt a pang of guilt. He'd stirred the pot and now everyone was a suspect. "Perhaps," he offered, "I could help. Back on Earth, we use sophisticated network analysis to detect anomalies in communication patterns. If Iconian is communicating with anyone..." Lyra's antennae twitched. "The Prilorian communication network is far more complex than anything you can imagine, Richard. It is interwoven with holographic projections, emotional resonance fields." "Which is precisely why your artistic talents are needed, Lyra," Richard countered, a spark of excitement in his voice. "I can analyze the data streams, identify patterns, but I'll need you to interpret the visual and emotional components. Tara, with your access, we can tap into the core network nodes." Tara considered the proposal. "It is unorthodox, but Iconian has always been meticulous in his public actions. If he is plotting something, it will be hidden beneath layers of deception." She nodded slowly. "Very well. Lyra, assist Richard. I will grant you both access to the central archive." Days blurred into a whirlwind of data streams, holographic projections shimmering with hidden messages. Lyra, her fingers dancing across the control panel, gasped. "Richard, look. These seemingly innocuous public service announcements. Iconian is subtly altering the emotional tone, amplifying negative sentiments towards the royal family." The projections, initially appearing as comforting scenes of Prilorian life, now pulsed with undertones of dissatisfaction and resentment. Sierra, arms crossed, leaned against the doorway. "All this data crunching is giving me a headache. While you two are playing with pretty lights, Iconian is probably solidifying his power base. We need to hit him where it hurts." She grinned, a flash of rebellious energy in her eyes. "I have friends. In the underground racing scene, they know things, and they definitely don't like Iconian." Richard raised an eyebrow. "Underground racing, Sierra, that sounds risky." "Risk is my middle name," she quipped, already halfway out the door. "Besides, I hear Iconian has a favored racer, a little accident on the track might send a message." That night, the air crackled with anticipation. The underground racing circuit was a chaotic symphony of roaring engines and flashing neon. Sierra, clad in sleek racing leathers, led Richard through the throng of spectators. The vehicles, hovering platforms powered by manipulated gravitational fields, were works of art, customized with intricate designs and pulsating lights. "See that platform, the obsidian one with the crimson streaks?" Sierra pointed. "That's Nightshade, Iconian's champion. Thinks he's untouchable." As Nightshade prepared for the race, Richard surreptitiously adjusted the settings on his wrist-mounted gravitic calibrator, a device he'd salvaged from the wreckage of his escape pod. With a subtle manipulation of the local gravitational field, he introduced a barely perceptible instability to Nightshade's platform. The race began, a blur of speed and light. Nightshade took an early lead, his platform cutting through the air with ruthless efficiency. But as he approached a tight turn, the subtle instability took effect. Nightshade's platform wobbled, momentarily losing control. He swerved, narrowly avoiding a collision but lost valuable ground. Sierra, watching from the sidelines, whooped with delight. Nightshade finished the race in a disappointing fourth place. The crowd roared, and the news of Nightshade's defeat spread like wildfire through the racing community. Sierra received nods of respect and acknowledgement. Back at the palace, Tara paced before a holographic display of the royal treasury. "There are irregularities. Significant sums of money have been diverted to off-world accounts. And this is disturbing. A substantial amount was transferred to a shell corporation registered on Earth, the same corporation that was supposedly funding your rescue mission, Richard." Richard felt a chill run down his spine. "So, they weren't coming to rescue me at all. Iconian was paying them." Tara's skin flickered with anger. "It appears so. He was attempting to manipulate events on multiple fronts, creating doubt, undermining our authority." Richard and Lyra returned to their work, poring over the encrypted communications. Lyra gasped, pointing to a recurring symbol hidden within the holographic projections. This is an ancient glyph. It represents the heart of Prylos, a powerful artifact said to be hidden beneath the royal palace." Richard frowned. "An artifact? What kind of artifact?" "A source of immense energy," Tara said, joining them. "Legend says it can power our entire civilization, or destroy it." Later that evening, Richard found Tara alone in the royal gardens. The air was filled with the scent of bioluminescent flora and the soft hum of the city. "Tell me about this heart of Prylos," Richard asked. Tara sighed, her bioluminescence dimming slightly. "It is an ancient energy core, a relic from a time before recorded history. Our ancestors discovered it beneath this very palace. They learned to harness its power to build our civilization. But they also learned of its potential for destruction. It is said that if the core is destabilized, it could unleash a cataclysm that would shatter Prylos." Richard felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "And Iconian knows about this." "He does," Tara confirmed. "And I fear he intends to weaponize it, to blame the royal family for the ensuing chaos and seize power for himself." Meanwhile, Sierra met with her hacker contact, a wiry Prylorian with glowing blue antennae named Rix. "Here," Rix said, handing Sierra a data chip. "Detailed schematics of the entire palace complex, including the underground levels. I even managed to map the security protocols. There's a hidden access tunnel beneath the old hydroponics lab. It's lightly guarded." Richard studied the schematics, his brow furrowed in concentration. The palace was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, but he quickly identified the location of the hidden energy core. It was buried deep beneath the palace, in a chamber reinforced with layers of shielding. "This is it," he said, tracing a finger across the diagram. "The energy core, and this is a dormant stabilization matrix. If Iconian can bypass that matrix, he can weaponize the core." Suddenly, Lyra gasped, her skin flashing with an intense burst of light. She stumbled, clutching her head. I saw it, Iconian. He's activating the core, the energy. It's building, the city, it's collapsing." Richard grabbed her arm, steadying her. Lyra, what did you see? A vision, she whispered, her voice trembling. Iconian, he's using the artifact to destroy everything, the prophecy. It's not just a story, it's a warning. The sisters and Richard gathered in the war room. The holographic map of Prylos shimmered before them, a stark reminder of the stakes. We have to stop him, Tara said, her voice firm. We split up. Richard, you and Sira will use the underground tunnel to infiltrate the palace. Lyra, use your abilities to create a diversion, draw Iconian's attention away from the core. I will alert my closest advisors and prepare for possible combat. As they prepared to depart, Tara turned to Richard, her eyes filled with a mixture of purpose and fear. Be careful, Richard. Iconian is dangerous, and he is desperate. Tara moved with purpose, calling for advisor Phelan, whom she suspected was the traitor. Phelan, I need to speak with you in private. She gestured to her private chambers. Once inside, she activated a personal energy shield, cutting them off from all surveillance. I know you've been working with Iconian. Phelan's skin paled. Your Majesty, I assure you, don't insult my intelligence, Tara snapped. I have evidence. Financial records, encrypted communications. Why Phelan? Why betray your queen? Phelan's composure crumbled. He threatened my family, he choked out. He said he would. He would harm them if I didn't cooperate. Richard and Sira, armed with makeshift energy weapons and a detailed map of the underground tunnels, moved swiftly through the darkness. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying vegetation. They reached a heavily guarded junction. Time for a little physics lesson, Richard muttered, pulling out a small device from his pack. He activated it, and the tunnel filled with a high-frequency sonic pulse. The guards, disoriented and clutching their heads, dropped their weapons. Nice trick, Professor, Sira grinned, picking up one of the discarded energy rifles. Lyra, meanwhile, stood before a massive holographic projector in the city square. With a flick of her wrist, she unleashed a dazzling display of light and color, creating a series of illusions that captivated the crowd. A giant, shimmering dragon soared through the sky, followed by a squadron of ethereal starfighters. The crowd gasped in awe, their attention completely diverted from the palace. Richard and Sira reached the chamber containing the energy core. It was a massive structure humming with nearly unleashed power. The air crackled with static electricity. Impressive, isn't it? Richard breathed, examining the core. But I need more time. I can't just shut it down. I need to find the correct deactivation frequency or it'll overload. Suddenly, the chamber doors burst open and Iconian strode in, flanked by a squad of heavily armed guards. So the human has finally arrived, he sneered. I must admit I underestimated your resourcefulness. What do you want, Iconian? Richard demanded, his hand hovering over his energy weapon. What I want is simple, Iconian replied, his eyes gleaming with ambition. I want to reshape Prylorian society, to eliminate the corruption and decadence that have plagued us for too long. And he paused, his gaze sweeping over the holographic image of the sisters. I want a queen who understands the true meaning of strength. Sira, your rebellious spirit is wasted on this. Weakling. The sisters felt a sting of anger and betrayal run between them. Richard knew he needed to buy time. And you think destroying the city is the way to do it, killing innocent people. Collateral damage, Iconian shrugged. A necessary sacrifice for the greater good. As Richard and Iconian engaged in a tense war of words, Tara, back in the royal chambers, confronted Phelan. Tell me, Phelan, what is the deactivation frequency for the energy core? Phelan hesitated, his face etched with conflict. I can't. He'll kill my family. And what do you think he'll do to them when he destroys the city? Tara countered. Tell me the frequency, Phelan. Give me a chance to save them all. Finally, Phelan relented, whispering the frequency into Tara's communicator. Tara, her fingers flying across the console, transmitted the deactivation frequency to Richard's wrist device. Richard, I'm sending you the code now. Use it wisely. Richard punched in the deactivation frequency, his fingers flying across the Prylorian console. A low hum vibrated through the platform, a deceptive calm before the storm. Then, a guttural laugh echoed through the chamber. "Foolish human," Iconian roared, his crimson eyes blazing. "Did you think it would be so simple? I have countermeasures for everything." He banged his hand on a nearby panel, and the energy core pulsed violently. The controlled hum shifted into a chaotic shriek as tendrils of emerald energy lashed out, creating a swirling, unstable field. "He's overloading it," Richard shouted, his voice barely audible above the rising cacophony. Sparks flew from the console as the energy field intensified, bathing the chamber in an eerie green glow. Iconian's voice dripped with venom. "For generations, I have orchestrated these tournaments, eliminated rivals, positioned myself to claim what is rightfully mine, and I will take one of you as my own." He gestured towards the sisters, his gaze lingering on Tara. A true Prylorian ruler, not some outsider. A ripple of unease passed through the sisters. Iconian's words, though hateful, touched upon unspoken fears. Was Richard truly the best choice? Had their leadership been compromised by their affections? Tara's face hardened, a mask of dedication settling over her features. Lyra's brow furrowed with worry, her empathetic nature sensing the turmoil within her sisters. Sira, ever the rebel, simply glared at Iconian, her hand instinctively reaching for her energy blade. Richard, oblivious to the internal conflict brewing beside him, was already focused on the chaotic energy field. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he ran a rapid diagnostic. "There," he exclaimed, pointing to a fluctuating node in the energy matrix. "A harmonic resonance point. If we can hit it with the right frequency, we can override his countermeasure. But the timing has to be perfect." Tara, snapping back to reality, barked orders. "Lyra, Sira, divert his attention. Keep him away from the controls. Richard, I'll create an opening for you. We need that core stabilized." She drew her energy blade, the shimmering weapon humming with deadly intent. "For Prylos." With a battle cry, the sisters launched themselves at Iconian and his remaining guards. Lyra unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, forcing the guards to take cover. Sira, agile and quick, weaved through the chaos, her energy blade a blur of motion. Tara engaged Iconian directly, their blades clashing in a shower of sparks. Richard, shielded by the sisters' assault, worked furiously at the console, recalibrating the deactivation sequence. His fingers danced across the controls, his mind a whirlwind of calculations. He had to be precise. One wrong move and the entire core could explode. He muttered under his breath, "Come on, come on." Almost there. Finally, he punched in the final sequence. The chamber went silent for a heartbeat, the chaotic energy field momentarily still. Then, with a surge of power, the core stabilized. The emerald tendrils dissipated and the ominous shriek faded into a low hum. "Now," Richard yelled. The sisters seized the opportunity. Tara disarmed Iconian with a swift maneuver, while Lyra and Sira unleashed a coordinated energy blast, knocking him to the ground. His guards, disoriented and outnumbered, were quickly subdued. Iconian lay defeated, but his eyes burned with hatred. "You may have won this battle," he snarled, "but the war is nowhere near the end." He pressed a hidden button on his wrist, and a section of the floor shimmered and disappeared. "Enjoy your victory while you can. If I die, the core goes with me. A failsafe, centuries in the making." With that, he plunged into the teleportation portal, vanishing without a trace. The sisters exchanged worried glances. Iconian's threat hung heavy in the air. A failsafe. Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. "What have we done?" Tara placed a reassuring hand on her sister's shoulder. "We did what we had to do. We protected Prylos, but we need to find him, and fast." Richard stepped forward, his expression grim. "He's right. If that core goes critical, it could destroy the entire city." He looked at each of the sisters, his eyes filled with tenacity. "We'll stop him together." The sisters looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. Iconian's words had shaken them, but they would not let doubt consume them. They were the royal sisters of Prylos, and they would face this challenge together, with Richard by their side. "We stand united," Tara declared, her voice ringing with authority. "Our bond is stronger than any lie Iconian could conjure." Lyra nodded in agreement. "Richard, we trust you. We know your heart, you would never betray us." Sira grinned, her rebellious spirit reignited. "Besides, this is getting interesting. A failsafe, a hidden power source. Let's go find some answers." As if on cue, the deactivated energy core pulsed with a soft light. A holographic image flickered into existence above the core, displaying ancient Prylorian symbols. A voice, ancient and ethereal, echoed through the chamber. "The blood of the ancients will awaken the slumbering power. The outsider will guide the way. The balance will be restored or Prylos will fall." The image faded, leaving behind an unsettling silence. What was that?" Richard stammered, his eyes wide with disbelief. Tara stared at the spot where the holographic image had been, her mind racing. "A prophecy. I've heard whispers of it, but I never believed." "A hidden power source," Sira interjected, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Beneath the palace. This is incredible." "It also sounds like Iconian knew about it," Lyra said grimly. "That's why he wanted control of the core." Tara nodded. "We need to investigate, now." Richard ran a hand through his hair, his mind struggling to process the sudden turn of events. "Okay, prophecy, hidden power source, potential city-destroying failsafe." Anyone else feeling a bit overwhelmed? He paused, then a spark of ingenuity lit up his eyes. "Wait a minute. I might have an idea. Remember that energy-dampening technology from the racing circuit? We could modify it to shield us from potential energy surges as we explore the power source." Lyra's eyes widened. "That's brilliant. I can adapt our clothing to integrate the shielding matrix. It won't be pretty, but it should offer some protection." Sira, already pulling out her comm device, grinned. "I'll call my contacts in the racing community. They know everything about energy manipulation. Maybe they've heard whispers about Iconian's potential hideouts, or at least know who he might be working with." Tara, ever the pragmatist, turned her attention to security. "I'll reinforce the palace defenses, loyal guards at every strategic location, and a full audit of all personnel with access to sensitive information. Richard, I want your technology integrated into the palace security systems. Now." Lyra suddenly gasped, clutching her head. Images flashed before her eyes, a series of interconnected chambers beneath the palace, each guarded by a unique energy puzzle. She saw symbols, colors, and intricate patterns all swirling together in a dizzying kaleidoscope. "Chambers," she whispered, her voice strained. "Beneath the palace. Energy puzzles, artistic expression." Richard frowned, piecing together Lyra's fragmented vision. "Energy puzzles, like riddles you have to solve with art." "It's the only thing that makes sense," Lyra replied, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Each chamber, it resonates with a different form of artistic expression." Richard chewed on his lip, his mind already racing. "Okay, so we need a map. But how do we map underground chambers without triggering whatever defenses are down there?" He paused, then snapped his fingers. "I've got it. I can adapt my Earth-based geological survey techniques, use sonic resonance to create a detailed map of the underground structure, but I need a stable energy source to power my equipment." He looked at Tara. "Any chance I can get access to the palace's main power grid? Just for a limited trial, I promise." Tara hesitated, her distrust of untested technology warring with her trust in Richard. "A limited trial," she conceded, her voice firm. "Within a controlled environment. I will not risk the city's energy grid on a whim." Richard grinned. "That's all I need." He set to work, modifying his equipment and preparing for the survey. Hours later, in a secure chamber deep within the palace, Richard activated his modified sonic resonator. The device emitted a series of low-frequency pulses that penetrated the ground, bouncing back with information about the subterranean structure. A holographic display shimmered to life, revealing a complex network of tunnels and chambers beneath the palace. "There it is," Richard said, pointing to a particularly intricate chamber. "The first puzzle chamber, and look at this. A complex energy field. It seems to resonate with." "Lyra, what did you say? Artistic abilities?" Lyra nodded, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. "Yes, I can feel it. It's like a symphony of light and color waiting to be conducted." Meanwhile, Sierra's contacts had come through. "Iconian's been in contact with a reclusive energy researcher," she announced, her voice sharp. "Name's Alara Vane, known for creating unstable energy weapons. She's got a lab located in the radioactive Badlands outside the city." "The radioactive Badlands," Tara exclaimed. "That's heavily restricted territory. What was Iconian planning?" Sierra shrugged. "Don't know, but if he's looking for someone to weaponize that failsafe, Vane's our best bet." "We need to bring her in," Tara said grimly, "before Iconian can use her." Back in the secure chamber, Lyra was already hard at work on the energy puzzle. She closed her eyes, focusing her mind on the intricate patterns and harmonies of the energy field. Then, with a deep breath, she began to create. Holographic projections shimmered into existence, swirling around the chamber in a dance of light and color. She manipulated the projections, shaping them, twisting them, and merging them together, her artistic intuition guiding her every move. As Lyra drew closer to solving the puzzle, the holographic message from the energy core intensified. The ancient Prilorian symbols pulsed with light, and the ethereal voice echoed through the chamber once more. "Beware, the slumbering power. It awakens, a catastrophic surge. Prylos will fall." Richard and the sisters exchanged worried glances. The stakes had just been raised. This wasn't just about stopping Iconian. It was about saving Prylos from a potentially catastrophic energy surge. Sierra moved like a shadow through the abandoned energy researcher's lab, the air thick with the metallic tang of ozone and the faint hum of residual power. Dust motes danced in the pale light filtering through cracked windows, illuminating discarded equipment and half-finished experiments. She tracked Iconian's energy signature to a central chamber, a knot of unease tightening in her gut. Too quiet. Suddenly, the floor beneath her shimmered. She threw herself backward as a pulse of raw, emerald energy erupted from the floor, bathing the room in an unholy light. It felt wrong, twisted, like a symphony played on broken instruments. Sierra coughed, scrambling back, her armor protesting with each movement. "Report, report." She barked into her comm, but only static answered. The mutated energy had scrambled the signals. The pulse spread outward, corrupting the already desolate Badlands. Jagged rock formations writhed as if in pain, their surfaces sprouting grotesque, bioluminescent growths. The wind howled, carrying the stench of decay and something else, something acrid like burning plastic. The silence that followed was even more unsettling than the storm. Back in the palace, Richard stared at the readings flooding his console, his brow furrowed in concentration. That energy signature. It's similar to what was used in the tournament, but distorted. He ran a series of complex calculations, his fingers flying across the holographic keyboard. It's been modified, weaponized. He looked up, his eyes wide with realization. Iconian. Lyra, meditating in her studio, surrounded by swirling colors and half-finished sculptures, gasped. A vision slammed into her mind. Iconian, his face twisted with malice, corrupting the energy source at its heart, twisting it into a weapon of unimaginable destruction. Prylos, consumed by emerald fire. She stumbled back, clutching her head, the images seared into her memory. In the royal war room, Tara listened to increasingly frantic reports from the city guard. "Unrest in the lower districts, Your Highness, protests escalating. They're demanding answers about the power source. About the human." She clenched her fist, the weight of her responsibility crushing her. Iconian was using the people's fear as a weapon. "We need to find Sira," Richard said, his voice cutting through the tension in the war room. "Communications are down, but I have an idea. Remember those racing drones from the last festival? I can modify them, adapt their sensors to detect that unique energy signature. But I need Sira to recalibrate one of them. Give me a lock." Sira, meanwhile, was playing a deadly game of hide and seek. The mutated energy had spawned creatures grotesque parodies of Prylorian wildlife, their bodies twisted and corrupted, their eyes burning with malevolent intelligence. She dodged a lunging, six-legged monstrosity, its claws dripping with viscous, green fluid. Reaching a relatively safe perch atop a crumbling rock spire, she pulled out the drone. Its sleek chassis felt strangely comforting in her trembling hands. With a muttered curse, she began the recalibration sequence, her fingers dancing across the drone's interface. The signal pierced through the energy interference, a faint but steady pulse that reached Richard's console. "Got her!" he exclaimed, his fingers tracing the signal's origin on the holographic map. But the energy readings, they're off the charts. Whatever Iconian's doing, it's affecting the entire ecosystem. Tara watched the holographic displays, her face etched with worry. "The unrest is spreading. I'm considering enacting martial law." Lyra recoiled. "No, we can't rule through fear, Tara. We need to understand their concerns, address their fears." "Understanding takes time, Lyra." "Time we don't have." Tara snapped, the strain of leadership cracking her usually calm facade. Richard led them into the chamber with the energy puzzle. Lyra approached it cautiously, her hand outstretched. As she touched the swirling energy, a wave of images flooded her mind. Prylos reduced to rubble, her people screaming in agony. The puzzle was adapting, projecting visions of Prylos' potential destruction, specifically targeting each sister's deepest fears. For Tara, it was the image of her failing her people, leading them to ruin. For Lyra, it was the destruction of Prylorian culture and history. Miles away, Sira stared in horror at the device Iconian had erected, a monstrous contraption of twisted metal and crackling energy, designed to amplify the mutated energy and unleash it upon Prylos. "You can't do this," she shouted, her voice hoarse. "You'll destroy everything." Richard's eyes widened. "The visions, they're not random. They're a projection of the energy source's corrupted potential. Iconian's feeding it his negative emotions, his hatred, his desire for power. And the prophecy, it's amplifying it all." Tara swayed, the vision of her failing people threatening to overwhelm her. Her hand hovered over the lockdown trigger, her face pale with fear. I have to protect them," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Richard gripped her arm, his voice firm. "Tara, no, don't let him control you. He wants you to be afraid." He looked into her eyes, his gaze unwavering. "You are stronger than this." Sira, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, lunged for the amplification device. She ripped out a crucial power conduit, sending sparks flying and disabling the device's long-range capabilities. But the act triggered an immediate release of a smaller energy pulse, bathing the chamber in emerald light. Iconian would know exactly where she was. Lyra, seeing Tara teetering on the edge of despair, focused her artistic energy. She closed her eyes and imagined Prylos as it could be a city of hope, unity, and resilience. She projected these images onto the energy puzzle, infusing it with her positive emotions. The visions of destruction flickered, replaced by glimpses of a brighter future. The energy puzzle stabilized, revealing a pathway deeper into the underground complex. Iconian appeared before Sira, his eyes blazing with fury. "You little insect, you dare interfere with my plans." He grabbed her roughly, dragging her toward the amplification device. "You will be my conduit, princess. You will witness the destruction of Prylos and then its glorious rebirth under my rule." Back in the war room, Richard cursed. "The drone network, it's being hacked." Someone inside the palace is feeding Iconian information, planning to sabotage the city's defenses. He needed to redirect power from the city's shields to counter the hacking, but that would leave Prylos vulnerable. Tara, torn between protecting her city and rescuing her sister, felt the weight of leadership crushing her. I don't know what to do, she confessed, her voice tinged with despair. Richard took her hand, his grip firm. You have to trust us, Tara. Lyra and I will go after Sira. You need to focus on protecting the city. Richard and Lyra descended into the newly revealed chamber, their footsteps echoing in the vast, cavernous space. In the center stood an ancient Prylorian device, its surface covered in intricate carvings that pulsed with a faint internal light. This is it, Lyra breathed, her voice filled with awe. The amplifier or the neutralizer. It can either amplify the energy source or neutralize it completely, but it requires a precise emotional calibration. Is Iconian running from it or going after it? Richard wondered aloud. Above them, Iconian held Sira captive on a high balcony overlooking the city. The amplification device hummed with power, bathing Prylos in an ominous green glow. People of Prylos. Iconian's voice boomed across the city, amplified by the device. Your royal family has failed you. They have brought chaos and destruction upon us. Surrender and I will spare your lives. Resist and watch your city be consumed by chaos. Tara closed her eyes, her heart aching with despair. She had to make a choice. Richard, she said into her calm, her voice trembling but firm. Lyra, you have to calibrate that device, save our city, and save my sister. She entrusted the fate of Prylos to Richard and her sister's life to him. The ancient device hummed erratically, its crystalline structure flickering with unstable light. It's reacting to our emotions, Lyra said, her brow furrowed in concentration. The readings are all over the place. Energy crackled around them, stinging Richard's skin. He could feel Lyra's frustration, a palpable wave in the confined space. We need to find a focal point, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. A unified intention. Meanwhile, across the city, Tara confronted Counselor Vorlag in the defense control room. Your treachery ends now, she stated, her voice echoing in the sterile environment. Vorlag sneered. Iconian offers a better future, one where Prylos isn't ruled by sentimentality. A brief but brutal fight ensued, Tara's combat prowess undeniable. As Vorlag fell, Tara contacted Richard. The sabotage has been averted, she reported, her voice strained. Then a tremor entered her voice, barely audible. I hope I'm strong enough for what comes next. Richard's eyes widened. Lyra, stop. He exclaimed, grabbing her hand. The device isn't just amplifying energy, it's reflecting our emotional state. We need to be in sync. He realized the key wasn't brute force, but emotional unity. In Iconian's fortress, Sira, still a captive, overheard Iconian gloating to his lieutenant. Once the device is fully operational, I will rewrite the Prylorian prophecy. The royal line will be erased and my reign will be absolute. Sira's heart pounded. She had to find a way to stop him. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing on a vision of Prylos, lush forests, clear skies, and its people living in harmony. She poured her artistic soul into the image, but Iconian's influence twisted it, corrupting the vibrant colors with shadows of fear and despair. Richard felt her falter. Lyra, look at me, he said softly, taking her face in his hands. Remember our love, our bond, focus on that and let it guide you. Tara, exhausted but resolute, secured the city's defenses. Her calm chimed, Richard's voice filled with urgency. Tara, what happened back there? I heard something in your voice. Tara hesitated, her mask of stoicism cracking. It doesn't matter, Richard. But it did. Her insecurity, her fear of inadequacy, was now an open channel. Richard, piecing together Tara's vulnerability, Sira's intel, and Lyra's vision, formulated a plan. We can use the prophecy against him, he declared. Sira is connected to it. We can use her as a conduit to disrupt Iconian's control. Lyra, grounded in their love and armed with a unified vision, projected the image of a thriving Prylos onto the device. Tara, despite her fears, added her strength, her purpose to protect her people. The device hummed, resonating with their combined will. A pathway, shimmering with iridescent energy, began to emerge, leading directly to Iconian and Sira. Sira, sensing the shift in energy, seized her opportunity. She kicked out at Iconian, sending him stumbling back. "Your reign ends here," she shouted. A fierce struggle ensued, destabilizing the amplification device. Energy surged uncontrollably, threatening to overload the system. But in that chaotic surge, Richard detected a pattern, a weak point in Iconian's control matrix. Richard, Lyra, and Tara arrived at Iconian's fortress, finding him weakened and vulnerable, surrounded by crackling energy. The air thrummed with barely held-back power, threatening to tear the structure apart. "It's over, Iconian," Richard said, his voice echoing in the chamber. Guided by the sisters, Richard focused the ancient device on the surging energy. He channeled their unified will, redirecting the flow, neutralizing the immediate threat. As the energy stabilized, a link formed between Richard's mind and Iconian's. He saw a flash of images, a loving family, a tragic accident, a crushing sense of loss. Iconian's pain, his anger, stemmed from the death of his family. Richard reached out, not with force but with compassion. "Iconian," he said, his voice resonating in Iconian's mind, "I understand your pain, but this isn't the way. Let go of your anger. Let us help you heal." He showed him his own memories, his own struggles, and the love he shared with the sisters. Iconian stared at them, his eyes filled with a mixture of rage and grief. He saw their love, their unity, and the genuine compassion in their faces. Overwhelmed by his own pain and moved by their offer of forgiveness, he relinquished his control over the remaining energy. The energy, now freed from Iconian's control, surged back into Prylos, not as a destructive force, but as a healing balm. The scorched lands began to regenerate, the polluted skies cleared, and a sense of hope spread throughout the planet. Prylos experienced a period of unprecedented renewal and growth. The energy revitalized the environment, fostering a new era of understanding and cooperation. The Prylorians, inspired by Richard's compassion and the sisters' leadership, embraced a future built on unity and empathy. Standing before the gathered citizens of Prylos, Richard and the sisters declared their love and commitment to each other and to their planet. "We are bound by love, by compassion, and by a shared vision for a better future," Tara announced, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. Richard stepped forward, his heart filled with hope. "I came here as an outsider, but I've found a home, a family, and a purpose. Together, we can build a future where understanding and compassion triumph over fear and hatred." Prylos roared its approval, celebrating the human who had shown them the true meaning of unity. Richard's humanity, his capacity